Hello and welcome to Automation Talk. And today you've signed up, so we're going to cover our power products. If you think we had some other topic, then you're in the wrong show. um, Real quick, actually, guys, you might have to advance the slides for me because I can't get them to advance. Anyway, Tom has put together a pretty good presentation for us, like he always does, and we're going to cover all of Automation Direct's power line
Welcome to
products,
Automation
power
Talk.
products. We'll just laugh that one off. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and I'm going to try to help him the best I can to cover the power products. Some of these I'm familiar with. Some of these actually I'm not.
Some of them are relatively new. So
Right. Yeah, we have a lot of new equipment and a lot of new products that Automation Direct has launched this year. So, Tom, with that being said, I'll go ahead and...
Okay, let's talk about the agenda real quick and everything. There's basically 9 categories in the power products line we're going to cover today. We'll start with DC power supplies. From there, we'll talk about our transformers, and we've actually lined up the product from your view. I'll be left to right, and I'll kind of work this end of the table up here, and I'll get Shane to work the other end as we talk about stuff and show it to you. From the DC power supplies, we'll go to power transformers, like I said. We'll talk a little bit about DC to DC converters. We'll talk about our power distribution blocks. I've used the word power too many times already, I can see. We'll talk about line filters. We'll talk about a newer product we have, which is the Bryant wiring devices, which are basically plugs and receptacles and safety devices and that kind of stuff. And from there, we'll talk about our power receptacle, which is a nice, neat labor saving device that is great to put DIN rail mount in a panel and run power to it. And if you have other devices you want to plug into it, like your programming panels or oscilloscopes or something like that, then we'll talk about our panel interface connectors. Will allow you to connect and program and troubleshoot PLCs and other equipment without having to open the enclosure door. And then finally, we'll talk about fuses and fuse holders. If you go to our website under the power products category, I'm not sure if the fuses are there, but that just seemed natural that fuses are a power device. So let's get started. Next slide, we'll show the various categories of power supplies. If you want to switch slides, there we go. We're going to cover the 6 major categories. What I've left out here for your interest is we also would consider for power supplies. We do have a couple wall wart type power supplies, and we also have our stepping motor power supplies, and also there's some open chassis type power supplies that are manufactured by one of our Federation partners, Fax Engineering. So let's get started. I'm going to walk down here to the power supply side and everything. And if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk about our PSM variety and everything. And this is going to be a little bit tough for me to pick this up because I taped it down because it's top heavy. But in this category, we can do 12 volts, 24 volts. This is a metal chassis, convection cooled, DIN rail mounted power supply. These are basically for harsh environments, harsh industrial environments. And if we go to the next slide, we have a large variety of power supplies that kind of cover the whole gamut of regulation and the various sizes and wattages that you might find.
And that's what a lot of customers were asking for today's show, is to go over power supplies and show what all we have. I know we've launched a lot, we've changed a lot.
Okay, we'll go through these different categories, and the slides will pretty much tell the story. As far as where and how you would use them in a nutshell, a lot of it has to come down to what you're trying to power with them. And of course, the voltage is going to be your number one criteria. The second one is going to be your ability to calculate the amperage that you're going to need and turn that into the wattage. And then last is going to be the regulation. So typically, the more expensive the power supply, the better regulation. And we tried to cover in our product selection here everything from the highly regulated type DC power supplies to less regulated.
Now, are you going to cover that, or can I go ahead and ask what's the difference? Why would you need something that's better regulated?
If
In
you're,
what situation?
yeah, that's a great question. And typical applications and everything. I mean, if we're sitting there and all we have is a bunch of solenoid valves,
Sure.
and we need 24 volts going to them through a DC output from a PLC output module.
Solenoid valves are going to create a lot of
Harsh environment
stuff anyway.
stuff, but you don't really need. You're going to, for sure, and that's going to be one of our webinars in the future, is to talk about noise suppression. But
right.
you're not necessarily going to need, precise regulation. So you're going to be able to afford most DC power supplies. You're bringing in AC, you're rectifying it, and then you're regulating it, and there's usually some kind of capacitance. A switching, there's linear types where you're taking a transformer and stepping the AC voltage down before you rectify it. With the switching type power supplies, you're actually taking the AC, you're still rectifying it, turning it into a higher voltage DC, and then you're going through a chopper circuit or some kind of inductive tuning circuit and everything to get a high frequency, and then that high frequency AC is actually rectified and filtered, and in that case it takes less of a capacitor. But again, less regulation would be stuff like solenoids. Highly regulated stuff would be electronic devices. If you have some kind of sensors out there, you're going to want those a little better regulated. If you have some kind of electronic device, and I'm going way out here in left field, but like a pacemaker, you're going to want that very regulated so you're not picking up ripple and noise from the DC power supply. Hopefully
So sensitive equipment, expensive equipment.
Yes, exactly.
So if you got a really expensive piece of equipment, why wouldn't you spend the extra money to buy a little bit better power supply, right?
Exactly. You're going to want the better one, and gives you more. And again, on stuff like solenoids and any type of inductive load, even with an unfiltered or a less filtered or regulated power supply, you're definitely going to want to add some kind of surge suppression, like a flyback diode or a blocking diode, like on a solenoid, or even a relay coil.
Okay.
Our next slide, we're showing I'm not even sure we have one of these up here.
Actually, did you mention, or are you going to mention, I know on this slide that shows the 12-volt DC power supplies, that has been one of the highest requested power supplies since we started selling them. I mean, obviously our 24 volts are very, very well needed and wanted, but everybody asked for 12-volt DC. So in case you didn't know or you haven't seen them, yeah, we do offer 12-volt DC power supplies now.
Yes, very much, and those are typically, sometimes they're used in automotive type or marine type applications and stuff. And there's a lot of equipment floating around out there that's 12 volts because most lead acid batteries are 12 volts.
Right.
We get into I could show it here, our little panel mount flat type. This is a low cost. It's a switching type power supply. That's where the low cost comes. It's not highly regulated, but it's regulated enough that I wouldn't be afraid to use it on some electronic equipment, like sensors and whatnot. Next slide, we get into, if you want to switch there, we get into the PSC. These are they're a plastic slim type case. They're a switching power supply again. They are Class 2 compliant. So if you're looking for Class 2, these are going to do it for you. They're lightweight. They're tightly regulated, meaning high regulation on the output. So ripple's going to be in the if you look at the ripple that's sitting on the DC side and everything, you're talking milliseconds of ripple and everything. The next one comes up is one of our newer ones. I don't know if I can pick this up, but this is the PSB series.
We got to give Tom some Wheaties.
These we've just come out with in, I think it's been the last month. We actually had a training session on these and everything, but these are actually a lower cost power supply with good regulation, and they cover the whole gamut of 12 and the 24 volts DC. Should talk about the input to them and everything. A lot of the power supplies now, instead of just being 120 volts or 240, they have a wide
Right.
AC input range like a lot of the other PLC products and stuff, where you can actually power them with 85 to 265 volts AC single phase. Also in this line, we get into three-phase inputs, and that question comes up. Why would I want to use three-phase to power a DC power supply just to get DC out of it? And one of the biggest reasons is it gives you a smaller form factor. If I bring 480 or 240 volt three-phase into my panel, and I'm able to take that three-phase and through fusing and secondary protection, I power my power supply. The power supply for the wattage I can get out of it is going to be extremely efficient as far as the form factor or how big it is. Plus, by bringing three-phase in, it's going to require a little less filtering to get better output regulation. And finally, I think there's two more classes, or is this the last one? And I only have one example of this up here, but this is our PSE. This is panel mount. It's an encapsulated power supply. What's nice about these is, they're self-contained. You throw them on a panel. There is an option on here. If you look on the back of it, besides the mounting holes, there is a DIN rail mounting adapter that you can purchase. They're under $10 or whatever. That allows you to take this little guy and put it on a piece of DIN rail. I think that's it for power supplies.
Yep.
And from there we jump into our control transformers. Basically they fall into two categories. We have the potted one, if I can bring this up here. Basically anywhere from half kVA all the way up. I'm sorry, that's not in this one, that's in the enclosed one. But these go from, I think we started 100 VA all the way up to 500 VA, maybe 1,000 VA. These are control transformers. Typically, if you go to the next slide, I think we show these are broken down into 4 different voltage combinations, where you can do 240, 480 by a series of jumpers to bring in your incoming voltage, and on the output we can do 24, 120, 240 with a series of jumpers. And I should also mention real quick, these also come with a fuse kit option. I'm going to hold up this other one back here. It's probably going to be hard to see in the video here, but if we can zoom in on that, and actually let me pull off the finger safeguard, but I've actually taken and use the fuse adapter kit by mounting that in here, so I can put my secondary fusing right on the transformer and everything.
Now, Tom, before you get too far, let's just say if any of our customers are watching, they don't know what a transformer would be used for. Can you give us an example?
These are going to be primarily used in industrial control type situations where your incoming factory or your plant power is going to be three-phase, 480, 240, and you're going to have different control enclosures throughout your plant, with everything from motor starter circuitry to control panels with PLCs and sensors and full automation. So you're going to use these primarily to bring that incoming voltage and step it down to a control voltage. And in most instances, that's going to be 120 volts AC.
I got you. Okay.
And I did mention the finger guards. And we also sell these transformers in a potted, fully enclosed type that you can wall mount or mount it on unistrut or something out in the plant floor and everything. What's next on our agenda? DC to DC. I think we have a couple examples here. Basically, there's a lot of times where, even though I brought in my factory three-phase 480 volts and I've stepped it down to control voltage of 120, and I have circuitry or sensors or something that requires 24 volts, so I throw a power supply in. I can also take and get a second power supply to take that 120 volts and give me 5 volts DC, or I can take a DC to DC converter. If I have an existing panel that already has, let's say, 24 volts or some odd voltage, and I need 5 volts or I need multiple voltages because of some kind of electronic device that might require plus or minus 12 volts plus 5 volts, like some computer equipment. I can take a DC to DC converter and actually take 1 voltage and convert it to a higher voltage or a lower voltage and use that in my application.
So that'd be beneficial if you had a large power. So let's just say, for example, you got a large power supply that converts from 120 volts of AC down to 24 volts, and you just needed something smaller for, like you said, some 5 volts or whatever, versus buying another 120 to say 5 volts using one of those. It's going to take up less space, be a little bit less expensive.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Now, if you had some smaller, say AC to 24 volts, and you needed a 5, it might be cheaper just to buy another whole power supply then.
True. Very
So
true.
it just depends on the application and your cost.
The next category we have coming up is our power distribution blocks. You might go back there. I should mention we have 2 types of DC to DC converters. One of them is in our Rhino line, and then we also, I can't remember which one we've had first. I think they probably both came into existence about the same time. We have a second one which is pretty unique because this is the one that'll bring in a voltage and actually give you the plus and minus. They'll give you like a triple type voltage output, and that's actually made by Fax Engineering, like some of the other equipment we have for sale. And now we get into our power distribution blocks. Basically, there's 2 styles.
Okay.
There's the finger safe operation, which I show here, and these are distribution blocks. Where would you use them? Again, in power distribution, coming into your panel from your 3-phase, you might have need to take, after your main disconnect or main breaker, to bring a heavy gauge wire, which would run into here. It could be something up in the neighborhood of 2-aught, which would be 1 inch in diameter wire with the insulation on it. And from there, you want to distribute it to something like 10 gauge wire that goes out to different transformers, motor starters, and that would come off the bottom. What's nice about these, they're finger safe, meaning you can't touch the circuit once it's wired up.
Yours and my fingers might not fit in it, but I bet my 3-year-old can get his in.
On purpose. And then we also sell all the way up to, geez, I can't even remember. These go up to like 600. Well, I see on the chart up there at 760 amps, but these are, again, power distribution blocks, although this one is actually a fuse clip. Here's the actual power distribution. Again, the top, your large gauge wire would come into it, and the bottom is where you would branch off with smaller gauge wires to distribute the power to other circuitry within your panel. But this is an open type. It's not finger safe, so if you're going to put it in a panel, make sure you use all the safety interlocks on the panel so somebody that's not authorized doesn't get in there and hurt themselves. The next thing on our chart, I think might be is our power line filters. I think this is
my favorite.
I'll let you have one there.
Actually, I had I was using one of these at the house 2 nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, since these are such great little items and they guarantee that I forget what their guarantee is, like it's like up to $25,000 if anything comes through these and damages your equipment. And being that we have a lot of these extra pieces of equipment laying around, I basically got sort of like these power strips, tied to these, and so I use them for home applications.
Okay. I mean, that's for industrial control. We talked about noise suppression, inductive loads, suppressing kickbacks or inductive kick with diodes and movistors and other devices. I mean, what's really great here, and it's the industrial version of the receptacle strips that
Right.
Everybody recommends you buy if you have computers in your home and your TV and your electronic gear and your stereo and everything else.
I don't think these would be cost effective for home use, though. If you start looking at this and what you'd have to do to adapt it, and then you look at the physical size of them for home use. I mean,
Right.
for me, it doesn't matter. It might not matter, but Yeah, they work great, and I've never had any equipment or any failures when I've used these.
These are available in 1, 3, and 5, and I think we can do 120 and 240 volt type applications
Yeah, I
with
love them.
these and everything. But yeah.
Even working in tech support, we never really, never had any problems out of them. Everybody always loved
No,
them. Never had any
I mean,
questions.
the bad, not the, I guess the bad part is a lot of people when they're doing applications, with industrial controls, one of the last things you think about is noise suppression and that. And to me, if I sit down and design any kind of circuit, I'm going to throw one of these in there
Oh,
to
definitely.
begin with.
Definitely. It's just insurance.
Then we jump over to Shane's side, and we want to talk about our wiring devices. These are brand new. I forget, didn't we just launch these
What, a
2
month?
weeks ago?
Yeah, I was going to
Maybe
say less than a
something.
month ago.
But it's a full line of straight blade, as the slide shows up there, locking, twist lock type. I'm not sure if I can use that word. I think that was trademarked. But along with these devices, we also have, the OSHA lockout type equipment. That's that big red thing that's in Shane's hand.
Trust me, you want to lock out your equipment.
Lock it out, and then also we have some accessories with cover plates. But I mean, these are everything from 120, 15 amp circuits, all the way up to 220 4-wire type circuits, and etc. I can't even remember the amperage range on these, but even down to the normal receptacle you'd see like in your house. If you go to the next slide, we get into a little more, which is one of the features I like, and that's the internal triple gripper. So on the plugs, if you take one of the twist lock plugs or even a straight blade plug, when you're putting them together and everything, after you make your connections and you start tightening the screws, it actually pulls that down inside, and then there's a cord grip that makes sure you have a good secure fit to the cord that goes into the unit and everything.
Yeah, these are really nice. I'm sure that we're put a hurting on some of the big box stores that sell some of this stuff, but
yeah, because we only what even on the table up here is a very small sampling. As I was going through the product photos and everything, there's like 75 photos or more, which we basically do a photo for every a part number that we sell and everything.
There's some really nice stuff there.
Next on our list is our power outlets, and Shane kind of alluded to those earlier, but this is a convenience device, mounted on a piece of 35 millimeter DIN rail. Bring your 120 volts AC up to it, and this allows you to plug other equipment into it.
Yeah, it's nice when you have these. Before we started selling these, actually we've been selling these for, I don't know, almost as long as I've been here, and I'm on my 11th year. But now we've had several different variations of it. But yeah, it was a big request because otherwise people would have pigtails or something like that. And it's very beneficial when you get into the cabinet and you need to plug in your laptop, you need to plug in some kind of test equipment or something like that. It's not, most of the time people don't have permanent wired devices in here, even though you could. But yeah, they just work great to have some type of accessory to come up and pop in.
Yeah, I mean, it was traditional for the designs I did, besides making sure I had some kind of filter in there, and plus all the, fuse protection, circuit breakers, and everything else. Traditionally, I would take and get a 2x4 handy box with a cover and a plain Jane three prong receptacle, and throw that in the box, and run my 120 to it to be able to come out and plug a laptop or another piece of equipment. And then so this saves a lot of labor. It's more convenient. But if you want to take the next step, we go to...
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be the next step would be this. You're going to spend a little bit more money, but you're going to be, accessibility on the outside of the cabinet without opening the cabinet, especially if you have like a shut-off for your cabinet to, access it. But
these are a power interface connectors.
This particular one I've got in my hand, it's hard to see. It's a multiple. There's multiple connectors inside here, but you've got power. You can get them with just power. This one's got power. It's got a RJ45 and a DB9, and it's also, you've got a nice little
circuit breaker.
Yeah, I want to say fuse. I'm like, the circuit breaker already built in. But yeah, you can get these in all kinds of different flavors. You can get them with just the communications. You can get them with just the power and so forth. But
Well,
these are
I think neat. We carry some with USB, and I would have never thought USB, bringing it to the outside world. But if you look at the Productivity 3000, how do you program that? USB.
Yeah, and you could walk right up. Say with the USB one, like you said, with a Productivity 3000, you could walk up, plug your pen drive right in the side of it, and if you had everything, you could set up and go through it. But yeah, I mean, these are nice because you can go up to the cabinet, plug into it, program the PLC, and never have to open your cabinet up.
Yep. They're sealed. They'll maintain the NEMA rating.
I just wish they would start selling these that have FireWire.
Oh, okay.
There's no FireWire in the industrial applications, but
one of these days.
Yeah, one of these days when you need really fast data.
You want to switch slides? I think we had a slide on.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, there's not. Just for real quick and everything. These are also, and I guess these terms throw me off because we call them power or PICs, PICs, power interface connectors, but on the slide you can see there that they also go by a bunch of other names: communications PIC, panel PIC, safety panel connectors, or power bulkheads, and blah blah blah. So lots of other names, but we like to call them PICs.
What was that, Tom?
PICs.
We didn't. I didn't even mention. I just saw this as I was flipping through real quick.
Did we skip something?
Yeah, actually, some of the stuff. Tom and I learned this a little late. Let me back up here. The wall plates. So we even have wall plates.
Yep. And actually, like the one picture on there and everything, that one plug and everything, I can go home and behind my dryer, that exact same plug's there with a big wall plate on it.
Don't let me find these in your house. Okay. No, I'm just kidding.
Our last category is fuses. But and fuse holders.
I'll leave those there.
I guess the biggest thing I can say there is
they're big.
They're big, but they're
small
too. We go all the way from the 5 by 20 millimeter glass types to the 1/4 by 1.25 glass type fuses to the ceramics, all the way up to the big knife blade type fuses, the RK5s, and Class J, Class CC is the small cartridge type fuses that you're going to find on transformers and in some cases for motor protection. I know you can't read it on the slide, but fuses are for overcurrent and short circuit protection in a lot of applications. You go to the next slide. We break our fuses down into two general categories. One's current limiting, and the other one's the small fuses. And under current limiting, we do the Class J, RKs, and CCs, and those are our designations for the different types of fuses and whether they're fast blowing or slow blow, and the types of applications you would use them in. And then the final slide shows the midget or small glass fuses and all the different various combinations there. You might ask, when and how and why would you use a fuse? If you go to, our website, basically there's going to be some references that will get you back to, where and how you would use the fuses, or why you would use the fuses and everything, and short circuit protection.
Tom, I'm going to back up for a second because
Sure.
I was just sitting there staring at these, and I know we probably have a minute or maybe two that we can spare. On these through panel, what common names, whatever you want to call it, but
Panel interface connector.
Yeah,
Yep.
your picks. Something that I forgot to mention on these, I actually show, I don't think in the pictures we really show a whole lot on the back. We mention it is, let's just say for instance you got an RJ12 connector that you purchased on here. You do not have to crimp that RJ12. I mean, it's a feed through, so you just basically put a patch panel. There we go. If I can turn it a little bit, I know the lights are a little difficult there. Basically, you'd just put another patch cable from that to your device, your PLC or whatnot. But also, look here, they also supplied your spade terminals
connectors.
here, your connectors. They're already on it, so you don't even have to. I mean, if you got out to the job, you go to wire this up. Everything's already there. You just supply the wires.
You're just going to plug and go.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, they went the extra mile with those. All right. Sorry about that interruption.
Nope. I mean, the more information we can get out there to the viewers, the better, I think.
All right. You want to go to the next slide?
That was it. We're
All
in
right.
the Q&A.
We're in the Q&A, so we're going to stop for a second. Okay. We're going to take questions, so if you have any questions for us, go ahead, chime in the chat there. All you got to do is go over and hit the Ask a Question button. There's a couple questions that have came in, and we'll be glad to answer any of them. If we don't answer all of them, don't worry. We'll email you an answer. Sometimes it might be something we need to look up. Unfortunately, Tom and I don't know everything about 8,000 plus products.
No,
You know,
no, not
maybe
even
at least
close.
5 or 6,000.
That's pushing it.
Maybe
but
5.
5 parts.
Yeah.
5.
So yeah, we if we don't answer, don't worry, we'll get you an answer. And also, behind the cameras or behind the scenes, we always have a special guest or an engineer sitting back there. So if you hear somebody else chime in, they might chime in and answer some questions for us and help us out. First question we have, let me see real quick on the cord end. Okay, I'm going to read this out and see if you can.
Okay.
Okay, on the cord end, so we're talking about our cord connectors and stuff like that.
Okay.
On the cord ends, you can that we spoke of. We talked about the pinching method being 3 interval fingers. Does our product line offer a crossover pinch bar?
Crossover pinch bar.
They said that they found that to be more reliable. I'm not familiar with it.
I got to be honest, I am not familiar with that terminology either. Crossed over pinch bar. I'll tell you what we'll do. When
We'll
get
look it
done
up
here,
and we'll
we
get
will
you an
look
answer.
it up and we'll email you back.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's it's the mechanism for holding the cord in place. I know I'm familiar with the rubber cord grips that, as you crank down, it pulls the rubber down into a taper that tightens up on the cord. Whereas these have 3 fingers as you tighten down. They actually have serrations on them that grip into the cord to hold it into place. So a pinch bar, I have a feeling, has something to do with a rolling action that helps hold the cord in place. But we'll have to look it up.
Okay. No problem. We'll get an answer to you on that one. Let's see what else we've got. All the products we have, we do carry in stock. Yes.
Yes.
Warranties. I know everything we have, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee warranty on everything. So, if you buy a cord grip, if you buy a fuse, if you buy a power supply, you buy software, whatever, 30 days, you don't like it, just want to test it, send it back. Everything else, most everything we sell has like a 2-year warranty. There's a lot of things that we have that are specialty. They have more warranties or higher warranties.
The line filters are basically lifetime,
yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and like I said, 11 years, Tom and I usually go scavenge through stuff if we can get products that even have been turned back in 30-day guarantees because we can use it in here. Very rarely do you see those. Tom and I have to buy those, so nobody sends them back.
These are all brand new. I actually had to pull these out of the stores to bring them in here.
And I've been using them personally for 10 years.
I'm going to hide these when we're done.
I've been using those personally for 10 years, and I've never had any issues with them. Okay. That's about all the questions we have. If you have any more questions, though, feel free to go ahead and ask. Don't worry, even if we get to the end of the show and you're asking a question, we'll still answer it via email. We'll get in contact with you some way, as long as we can figure out who you are.
Make sure you give us a good email address.
Yeah. I think that's about it on the Q&A, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you for those few questions, and we're glad everybody came in and took the time to watch this. Our ending is about to happen here, so I'm going to go ahead. It's a video, and it'll go through more stuff a lot better and faster than I can do it. Just want to say, thanks, Tom, for doing his typical great job. So.